Hey everyone, it's me Sloth. And in today's video, I'm going to be going over the big warrior update. Warriors, all 3 warrior subclasses just got giant buffs across the board. So in today's video, I'm going to be going over all the buffs, all the changes, along with my new builds for all 3 of the warrior subclasses. There will be timestamps in the description if you're just looking at like a specific class, but I think these warrior changes are really cool, and I think warriors will actually be the new meta now, at least until other classes get big changes. If you found the video helpful, do be sure to give it a like, and if you want to see more Vesteria content, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Now without further ado, let's get into the video. So the first class I'm going to be looking at is the Knight. Now the Knight is probably my favorite out of all the 3 changes. I mean, it's not the biggest, but Knight is really cool now, trust me. So the first major change I want to go over is Shield Bash. Shield Bash just got buffed massively, and now it has a 1-second cooldown. That's the main thing, but it also goes farther, and it's also just faster. You can use it faster. But here, let me show you how stupid this is. Here's a Fright Crow, right? Here's a whole army of them. These enemies are pretty tough if you remember them through the Halloween event. They're like level 50 scarecrows. And look, I can just infinite stun them. Even if I miss a couple times, it doesn't matter. Look at this. This is amazing. Ooh, a candy corn. This new Shield Bash is like really good, alright? I'm just gonna say it does use 30 MP, but guess what? You could just use Head Slime and get MP for taking damage. By the way, this is what I recommend for Knights now, but I'll get into my Knight build later. This build goes hard, alright? Shield Bash is really good now. The thing about stuns, at least most of them, is that they can now be blocked. If you have block chance and a Knight hits you and you block it, you won't get stunned. Same if you're use parry and some other abilities. So while stuns may not be that good anymore, I still think Shield Bash is really good, because if someone blocks a stun, just stun them again. You have a 1-second cooldown. It's really cool. I love this Knight buff. The next change Knight's got is Fortify. Now Fortify is basically Inspire, but now it only buffs you, and it does like about double the buff that Inspire used to do. So you get more defense. It has a lower cooldown but lower duration. And overall, I think this is a really good change, because Inspire was pretty much just a non-existent ability for me. I would always do taunts just because I didn't want to wait 120 seconds for a minor defense buff that no one else really cared about. But now it got changed, so here, let me show you guys right now. Here's I guess I'll take off my armor. By the way, if you're wondering where I am, this is the testing realm. So I took 306 damage from that. Now if I use Fortify, I take 205. But the last change Knight's got, and I think one of the coolest ones, probably the second coolest one next to Shield Bash, is now if you use a shield, your parry ability turns into, let me pull it up, Shield Parry. This ability is pretty cool because, like I said earlier, stuns can now be blocked. However, if you damage someone with parry, this stun is unblockable. So it's a pretty nice parry buff. I'm going to test it with Fright Crows again just because they're the funniest ones to use. Alright, now it should work. So basically you get shield parry, and that will stun them for 2 seconds. This is going to be really cool for PvP. So that's pretty much it for the Knight changes. I think these Knight changes are really cool, and actually there's now a purpose to play Knight. So I can definitely see a lot more Knight mains rising up after these changes, because now it actually feels like a real kit. The way I would build my Knight now is, in the main game, you'll probably see me using a Head Slime, because if I want to use spam Shield Bash, just getting hit will give me more mana to spam that. So that's pretty cool. Head Slime, I definitely think no matter what is going to be the meta. As for the armor, I'm probably just going to use Gladiator armor as well, just because all these defense buffs like the shield and the Fortify ability, it kind of nullifies that extra 20% damage you take. So yeah, I would definitely use Gladiator armor. As for the boots, I would just use Scare Boots just because they're so versatile. You get a lot of speed. And if you're and for the stat build in the main game, I'm definitely ditching the 70 Vite, because the thing about 70 Vite is that it used to be cool, back when Coliseum was level 50, but now the Coliseum actually like turns you into level 30, meaning you only get like 80 stat points, which means that 70 Vite is gonna eat like all those stats, and it just sucks now, alright? 70 Vite isn't it anymore. I would just use in the main game, if you're building a knight, I would do 30 dex and the rest into strength. That's my recommended build. Just because 30 dex gives you the lower cooldowns, and the strength is just for damage. As for the knight abilities, the way I'm probably going to build it is adventure. I'm just going to do whatever I want. I'm still going to keep roll, just because roll doesn't use much MP, and you can use it to block stuns and all that stuff. You can use it to take less damage. Basically anything that lets you block enemy attacks, that will make you immune to stuns. So I still think roll is good. Doesn't use a lot of MP, even though shield bash is still a really good mobility move now. And I don't really like spin slash anyway, just now I can punish a stun with another stun using shield bash, so I don't think there's any point to spin slash. I'm gonna max out shield parry to maximize that stun duration, and just gonna put the rest of the points into ground slam. And as for my knight book, I'm gonna ditch taunt now because fortify is just way cooler. And taunt is kind of lackluster anyway. It's really only useful in PvP, and even then the little weakness duration doesn't last that long, so I don't know. I don't really like taunt anymore. I'm just gonna maximize shield charge. Oh, now it's shield charge. I thought it was bash. I think it was always charge. I'm just dumb. But yeah, shield charge, definitely gonna max that out. And fortify will be my maxed out ability. I think this is going to be my ideal knight build for the main game. Anyway, let's move on to the next warrior, Berserker. So Berserker got some really cool changes. The first one I want to show off is Ferocious Assault. This ability got a massive buff. Basically, it has increased range, and you can now move a lot faster during it, where before you're kind of like had to stand still. Now you can actually move around while doing Ferocious Assault, which makes it a lot better in PvP and PvE. However, one thing to note is that it used to give you like damage reduction. Now it does not. You're still very vulnerable when doing Ferocious Assault, but pretty much anything that touches you will die. So I think this is a buff rather than a nerf. But another really cool change is Berserker just got a whole brand new ability called Headlong Dive. And basically you dive like you would in like some Mario game. The damage is very similar to Ground Slam, but this is just another mobility move for Berserker, and I think it's really cool. Although it will be a lot harder to aim, I think just, you know, traversing around the map and stuff, this is a really cool ability. And just surprise attacking people. Oh. Am I actually stuck? Aside from that, the only other change Berserker got was to Blade Spin. Blade Spin now, it does what old Ferocious Assault used to do. Now it blocks incoming attacks, which is also really useful against stuns like Shield Bash, because now you are immune to all that type of stuff while doing Blade Spin. I think this makes Blade Spin overall better since you're not as vulnerable when doing it because you're not taking as much damage. And here's what that looks like. Let me just get a whole bunch of Fright Crows. So as you can see, the damage they're dealing to me is like gray. But since these are Fright Crows, it's still a pretty significant amount of damage. Overall, I still think Blade Spin is not worth investing to. But maybe it has some uses for PvP. I think the only reason now would be PvP. So after all these changes, I think the way I'll build my Berserker is now I'll do 30 dex, rest into strength. 30 dex, again, I just think this is a really good stat build to do for a lot of classes, just because reducing ability cooldowns by 20% is so useful for a lot of classes. So 30 dex for Berserker, rest strength. I know this is exactly like my knight build, but it's just so good for strength warrior builds, alright? It's just 30 dex, rest strength. It's so easy, so versatile, it's amazing. As for skills, you know, adventure skills or whatever, you just want double slash, that's it. For the warrior book, I'm still sticking to what I did for my old Berserker video. Triple slash maxed out just because that's really good for dual wielding weapons. And then just I max roll, max slam, rest into spin slash, mainly just to unlock ground slam because you need at least 3 points in a spin slash to unlock ground slam. But for the Berserker skills, I'm still, even though Bladespin did kind of get a buff, I don't really care much for it. I still think Warcry being maxed out as a must-have for DPS Berserkers, just because that 15% extra damage, it's just really good. Alright, you want 15% extra damage, that's like insane. And then I just want maxed out Ferocious Assault, which I think is a must-have for Berserkers as well, just because this new Ferocious Assault it's pretty ferocious, if I do say so myself. And I just put the rest of the points in Headlong Dive. All leveling up Headlong Dive does is increase the power, and when maxed out it reaches 300 power. I don't really think that's necessary. I just think it's a really cool ability for mobility. I don't really care much for the damage, just because it's pretty difficult to aim. You have to like line yourself up and position yourself pretty good to actually take advantage of the damage. Honestly, I only like it because of the dive. Anyway, now let me cover Paladin. Alright, and the final changes to go over is for Paladin. Now Paladin, you'll notice right away, Smite has a lot more range. I mean, just look at that. And even better, if you use the Forgotten Axe, it doubles. Smite is just great now, alright? You can spam it. It has a lot of range. The Smite buff is pretty cool. And also, it's no longer parryable if anyone cares about that. But yeah, Smite, good. I also want to go over this brand new warrior ability that came out called Blasting Slash. This is a pretty good ability. It's a magical attack, so it scales off of, you know, the more intelligence you have. This is a pretty good attack for people who are leveling up a paladin, like you're a warrior but you don't have any magical moves, but you still want to invest into intelligence. And it's also pretty powerful and pretty useful for paladins. I mean, look at that, 430 power. I'm not sure if that's going to be changed because this is the testing room. But it's pretty good. The only thing is that when you use it, you're completely still. But it's spammable. Oh god, I almost died there. Bright crows are pretty tough, not gonna lie. The next ability that got released is a pretty neat DPS ability for paladins. Consecrate. It's like the Warlock Desecrate, but the holy version of it. Not really, they're not really that much alike aside from being AoE. But let me show you guys this. Basically you do damage when you like slam. And then it just keeps attacking anything that's inside of here. It does not heal, you know, allies or anything. But it's just some pretty cool holy scroll. I think of it as a way better version of Hail of Arrows. But maybe that's just me. It's a great DPS move for paladins now. Basically, paladins can actually do some DPS now. Other than that, nothing got changed to Rebuke. It was just Smite, you get a new ability, and the Blasting Slash. It's pretty much all warriors can use, except I think it's going to benefit Paladin the most. As for my Paladin build, you're not going to believe this. It's 30 dex, but instead of rest into strength, I put rest into intelligence. It's pretty crazy. I think int paladins are just a meta now. Before I was kind of doing a little bit of strength with paladins, but now with all these new buffs to the magical moves, I just think intelligence is a way to go. As for my skills, for adventure skills, I guess you want to max out magic missile as well. And for the warrior skills, these people might not like. All that really matters is that you max out Blasting Slash as a paladin, because this is a really good magic. Unless you're doing a strength paladin, of course, but I'm not really going to recommend strength paladin that much, because int paladin is just way better. But you max out Blasting Slash. I didn't even put a single point in a slam, mainly because it's kind of useless without the strength. So I just put those points in a parry and triple slash instead. You can do it differently if you want spin slash and ground slam still, you can still do that. But I think the key thing you want here is Blasting Slash. And for my Paladin book, player comfort is still useless. It's got no changes at all. But this time I maxed out Consecrate just because that's a really good DPS move. And I maxed out Smite just because Smite is actually really good and really spammable now. I like it. And I just put the rest of the points in a Rebook. I still think Rebook is good. If you want to max this out, all it does is increase the power again and then the knockback at the final level. But now I think it has more going for it with Consecrate. I'd just rather use this to max it out. and smite. And as for the equips for Paladin, I would actually, in the main game, I'd actually use a Forgotten Axe. I just use the Smoke 'em all just because it's the only gold tier I have in Testing Room. But I would, in the main game, I would definitely actually use the Forgotten Axe, just because this has the highest base attack out of all the two-handed weapons. And that smite range is actually insane. Anyway, that's going to be a wrap for this video. I hope you guys found it helpful or enjoyed. And I'll see you all in game with my warrior buffs. Probably in Coliseum, that's the area you'll see me in the most.